cinematic historical scene of young Juan Ponce de León in late 15th century Spain, standing outside a stone Spanish castle wearing historically accurate nobleman's clothing, leather boots and sword, looking toward the distant horizon with ambition in his eyes. Medieval Spanish village in background, dramatic sunrise, realistic architecture. Juan Ponce de León, as a young Spanish soldier, preparing for battle, surrounded by armored Spanish soldiers, horses, banners, and medieval weapons. That's the battlefield atmosphere. Determined expression, historically accurate late 15th century Spanish armor. Juan Ponce de León, standing on the deck of a wooden Spanish sailing ship, crossing the Atlantic Ocean toward the New World. Massive sails billowing in strong wind, sailors working around him, ocean waves crashing against the hull, Ponce staring toward the horizon, sunrise breaking through storm clouds. Juan Ponce de León and Spanish expedition members arriving on the Caribbean island of Hispaniola. Wooden ships anchored near a tropical shoreline. Dense jungle, palm trees, indigenous inhabitants observing from a distance. Spanish soldiers stepping onto the beach. A tense 16th century Spanish military expedition moving through Caribbean terrain. Juan Ponce de León leading armored soldiers on horseback, dense tropical vegetation surrounding them, indigenous warriors watching cautiously from the forest, atmosphere of uncertainty and conflict. Juan Ponce de León standing proudly in an early Spanish settlement in Puerto Rico. Wooden buildings, Spanish soldiers, settlers, horses and ships in the harbor behind him, tropical mountains in the distance. Wearing dark leather armor and a red cloak, powerful colonial governor atmosphere. Juan Ponce de León, seated at a rough wooden table inside a 16th century Spanish colonial government room, studying maps of Puerto Rico, parchment documents, quill, candles, and sword on the table. Spanish officials standing around him, serious political atmosphere. Juan Ponce de León and Diego Columbus stood toe-to-toe inside a grand Spanish colonial chamber, their intense gaze locked across a wooden table covered with maps and royal documents. The Spanish officials watching nervously. The political rivalry was palpable. Tension hung in the air, thick and foreboding. Juan Ponce de León, standing alone outside a Spanish colonial government building after losing political authority, holding a rolled map in one hand and sword at his side, his expression showing anger and disappointment, officials disappearing into the background. Sunset over Puerto Rico. Juan Ponce de León, alone inside a dimly lit room, studying a large parchment map of the Caribbean and unexplored lands to the north, candlelight illuminating his determined face, compass, quill, and navigation instruments on the table. A mysterious atmosphere. Juan Ponce de León, supervising preparations for his 1513 expedition. Spanish sailors loading wooden crates, barrels of water, weapons, and supplies onto 3 wooden sailing ships. Horses and crew members moving across the harbor. Ponce examining maps, Caribbean port bustling with activity. Juan Ponce de León, aboard his flagship, sailing north across the Atlantic toward Florida. 3 Spanish ships traveling through enormous blue waves, Ponce standing at the bow, holding a parchment map. Sailors pulling ropes behind him, dramatic storm clouds opening to sunlight. From the deck of Ponce de León's ship, the crew sees an unfamiliar green coastline appearing on the horizon. Dense forests, beaches, and mysterious waterways stretching into the distance. Ponce standing silently in the foreground, sailors pointing toward land. Breathtaking sunrise, sense of discovery and mystery. Juan Ponce de León, stepping on to the Florida coastline in 1513. Spanish sailors carrying the royal flag behind him. Pristine beach, dense subtropical forest, ocean waves. Ponce looking toward the unknown land with determination. Historically accurate clothing and equipment. Juan Ponce de León and his Spanish expedition, standing on a Florida beach during the early 16th century. Spanish royal banner raised. Ponce holding a sword and parchment proclamation. Sailors gathered behind him. Dense Florida vegetation and ocean in background. In the lush forests of Florida, behind a tangle of roots and grasses, the native people watched, their eyes narrowed at the strange vessels in the water, their hands tight on the wooden handles of their spears and bows. They stood together, guarding their families and their lands. The kind Spanish ships bobbed home. A tense encounter between Juan Ponce de León's Spanish expedition and indigenous inhabitants of Florida. Both groups facing each other across a sandy clearing. Spanish soldiers holding weapons but not attacking. Indigenous warriors defending their territory. Intense expressions, dense forest behind them. Historically grounded. Mysterious, cinematic visualization of the legendary Fountain of Youth in a lush Florida forest. Crystal clear spring surrounded by ancient trees. Glowing morning mist. Juan Ponce de León standing nearby, studying the water with curiosity. Magical atmosphere, but historically realistic setting. Subtle mystery rather than fantasy. Juan Ponce de León examining an old parchment map beside a natural spring. His expression skeptical and thoughtful. Mysterious shadows surrounding him. Symbolic visual suggesting the uncertainty of the Fountain of Youth story. Spanish navigational instruments and sword nearby. Juan Ponce de León, returning by ship to Puerto Rico after his Florida expedition. Exhausted sailors on deck, tropical island visible in the distance. Ponce standing at the bow with a serious expression, sails illuminated by sunset, emotional sense of unfinished ambition. Juan Ponce de León in 1521, preparing a second expedition to Florida, studying maps with Spanish officers, military supplies and weapons surrounding him, ships visible through the open harbor window, determined expression, darker and more serious mood than the first expedition. Juan Ponce de León's 1521 expedition arriving on the Florida coast. Spanish ships approaching a heavily forested shoreline. Soldiers unloading supplies. Ponce wearing leather armor and red cloak, atmosphere tense and ominous, dark clouds gathering above. In the blazing heat of the Florida sun, Spanish expedition members clashed with indigenous defenders. Juan Ponce de León, their leader, was wounded during the confrontation. Chaos rained down, arrows flew through the air. Spanish soldiers shielded their commander, while thick greenery surrounded the battlefield. Wounded Juan Ponce de León, being carried aboard a Spanish ship after the failed Florida expedition. Exhausted soldiers surrounding him. Dark ocean behind them. Storm clouds overhead. Ponce looking toward the distant horizon with determination, despite his wounds. In the epic, symbolic final scene of Juan Ponce de León's legacy, an abandoned Spanish ship sailing into a golden sunset, while a mysterious Florida coastline stretches beneath the sky, a subtle image of an ancient spring reflected in the water, parchment map of Florida in foreground, atmosphere of mystery, exploration with unanswered questions.